Hello and welcome to this Kotlin video. In this video, we're going to be building a quiz application. Just like you can see all these design on the screen, we're going to transform these to a real Android application. At the end, we're going to build a working quiz application with this over here. And at the last, we are still going to add this screen over here. So it's just going to be a time of interaction and a time of learning. So Kotlin is very good language for building interactive app, and it's very fast. I will even suggest you using Kotlin than React Native for my little observation, because you are working with native code and you still have this JavaScript mentality. Everything still works fine. Even if you don't know Java, you don't have to bother yourself. Everything is still going to be very easy for you to go ahead with. So this video, even if you're a new beginner, you don't have to worry yourself. Just follow along. At the end, you're gonna master Kotlin and also how to use Kotlin to make an API request, build an application, and also build something like an interactive application, because at the end we are going to do that. So let's get started. Enough of the introduction. Before you continue, if you are new to this channel, do make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. So in one of the previous videos, I showed us how we could set up an Android Studio. Although that we're going to be making use of IntelliJ IDEA, even if you are using Android Studio, you don't have to worry, because everything is still going to work the same way it is working. And this is just a dummy template that we're going to be using, a dummy boilerplate. Just click on check on the description. You're going to see a link that will take you to this dummy boilerplate so that you can have exactly what I have over here. So here I have these drawables. So these are the same files that you see in this Adobe XD Design. So I already moved the images, so we don't have to bother yourself. You don't have to bother yourself trying to grab the images. So just go ahead and grab that. And right now, let's move ahead. So I'm gonna close this, and the first thing we have to do whenever we open our file or whenever we open our Android project is to come over to the activity main. So you could see we have 3 tabs over here. We have the code, the split, and also the design. So the design, if you want to work graphically, the split if you want to work with the code and also graphically, and if you want to focus mainly on the code, you can still work on it. So even if you're using Android Studio, you don't have to worry yourself. Just go ahead and hit the like button and also the subscribe button. So the first thing we have to do is to bring down a text view, because in our design over here we have 2 double text view and then an image view. Let's go ahead and quickly add that. I'm going to add this to wrap content and also give this a wrap content. And I'm going to close that text view. I'm also going to copy this down and paste that so we can have double of it. And let's go ahead and work on it individually. So this is an ID of welcome. And for this one, we have to add some more properties. We're going to add a font family of fonts / open sans bold. So you don't have to worry about the font, because I already provided that. And we can change the text to welcome to, change the text color to H00C693, change the text size to 40 dp. So let me kind of bring in the design so that you could see we are anything that we type over here, I want you to be seeing it graphically. And we could just give it a start of parent, to constrain that, and also end to end of parent. And lastly, we can give it a top to top of parent. So you see we have that very nice looking welcome text. So make sure you spell this correctly. So we gave this an ID of welcome. And for this one, we're going to give it an ID of Aptifier. So breaking it down, give it a font family of open sans bold, a gravity of center to make sure that the text is at the center. We can still make sure that the text over here is at the center. A text color of 1cc 4b8, and also a text size of 40 dp. Then for the constraints, we have to constrain it to the start of the welcome text at the top, the end to the welcome text at the top as well, and the top, so we could set the top to the bottom of the welcome text so that it stays below that welcome text. And then lastly, we could bring in the text. We could just bring in active fire. So right now you see the text just appears very nicely, and we don't have to stress ourselves much on that. So the next thing we have to do is to bring in an image view. So for some reason I like to work with Android XML this way. I prefer it this way. So we're gonna give this an ID of just an image view ID. So make sure that this is just image view, whether it's capital or small, anyone. But we're gonna wrap the content, also wrap the content. But first we have to bring in the source, and the source is going to be coming from drawable called group 340. So you could see that image over there. So what we have to do now is to give it a margin top of 27 dp to bring it down, because once we constrain the top to the bottom of Aptifier, it's going to have that margin over there. So you could see that margin over there, and then we could constrain the start to the start of welcome, and also end to end of welcome, because we want them to stay on the same vertical axis. And we are done with that. And the next thing is to bring in the text. Then we have the text and the button, but for the button we are not going to be using login now, because we are not doing anything authentication. We are just going to change this to start, and that's only one button. So for the text view over here, so sorry guys for that. So for this text view, let's just quickly go ahead and break things down, cover things up, and we can give it an ID, any ID, text view 2, and we have to make sure everything is wrapped. And we can give it a margin top. So we have layout margin top of 27.8 dp, and also we have a font family of Open Sans Italic. So make sure you change this to Open Sans Italic, not light italic. So we can give it a gravity of center, because it's gonna be a long text. So let me just quickly go ahead and grab that text. So I'm just going to grab that text quickly, and going back here, you can just paste that text down, and you can give it a text size of 17 dp. The end to end of parents to the end of the container, they start to the start of container as well. And also we now constrain the top to the bottom of image view, so it stays below this image view over here. So let's just format that. You can actually format when you hit on code, you press R, you can format everything, and also make sure everything looks very nice. So it rearranges the code for you and formats that pretty for you. So the last thing we have to bring in now is one single button. So I'm just going to bring that button down. So for this button, we are going to give it an ID of button, or anything you want to call it, but just give it an ID. Then for the width and the height, we wrap. So sorry guys for that. We also wrap over here. Then for the margin top, we give it a margin top of 49 dp and also a width of 227 dp. And we can also give it a height of 60 dp, so that the button can look very nice. So the button is still at the top, but let's kind of go ahead and add a text called start, so that we could actually see what we are doing, and change the font family of that text to Roboto extra bold. Sorry, not Roboto, Open Sans extra bold. And then give it a background tint, because we want to change the background color, since we are not making use of a drawable file, of #006793. And also let's go ahead and constrain everything to the parent except for the top. So we could say the start to the start of parent, end to end of parent, and lastly top to bottom of text view 2. So automatically it brings it down to this over here. So we are done with the first screen, and that is looking very simple. And right now let's go over and work on the second screen. So we are going to call this screen stats. Why it is called stats is because, take for example, maybe we're using Firebase to store the user time wasted in the app. We can actually use this, we can actually display them over here, but even though we are not going to do that, as time goes on, we are still going to go into using Firebase to build very nice interactive apps. But right now you could see we have these 4 stars. We have the total score, total text, previous, and time taken. And we also have this nice looking background, and let's go ahead and work on that one. So let's just go ahead and start. On this over here, we are gonna click on this to locate that file. So you can see we already have a start file that we created. So the way we came about this was to make sure that in your Java folder, you create an activity generates a file for you. So that activity name was called stats. So make sure your activity name is called stats, so that whenever you create an activity, it's going to name it activity stats. So I kind of feel like, let me just pause right now, take a break, and we can continue. So guys, don't make sure you leave without hitting the like button or the subscribe button. So make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. Then on the next part, we're going to work on the start screen, and then we can move ahead. So see you on the next video. Welcome back, guys. So before you proceed, don't forget to hit the like button and also the subscribe button, and do make sure you share to your friends who are willing and who wants to learn Kotlin the simple way. So we are back to building our quiz application. The next thing I have to do is to go over to this start activity, and we have to bring down something called the linear layout. So why I'm using the linear layout is because if you check in the design, we have this image view over here. Then we have an overlay with all these other details. So this image, we take for example, in case we wanted to add something else apart from the white background for this second area over here, apart from this image at the top, which is making use of this percentage, maybe like 40 or 50%, we can make use of it differently. So why I'm using linear layout is because I want to have a balance so that we don't have a shorter top or a longer top. And let's go ahead and do that immediately. So this one, we're gonna fill the parent, and also we have to fill the parent. And let me go ahead and cover up. I'm going to give this necessarily we don't need an ID. It's not necessary because I was thinking of giving an ID, but we have to give it a layout gravity. So we could say layout gravity. So most of these I think is obsolete, but let me kind of give it an orientation. We are still going to call back to that, but in case we're gonna need that, I will still add it. So we have sorry guys, we have to constrain the bottom to bottom of parent, end to end of parent, and we also have to constrain start to start of parent, and lastly we have to constrain top to top of parent. So inside this over here, inside this linear layout, we can now use a constraint layout for the image because we wanted to make use of the full height of make use of the image to fit perfectly. So this one we're gonna match parent, and for the height we're gonna give it a 0 dp to make use of 50% of the linear layouts. And one more thing we have to add is something called layout weight, which is going to be 50 as well. And we can just bring the background. So let me just go ahead and close that because I think that's spacing it off, and you can see we have that line over there, and we can give it a background, not just a tint color, but a background image from drawable. So we're gonna call it BG, and you can see automatically we get that nice looking image. So I'm going to format this perfectly. So we are done with our linear layout, and we are going to add an overlay. So for this one, we have to match parent because we want to cover the previous linear layout, and we have to add an elevation of 2 dp. This is more like a z index, at a padding horizontal of 23.1 dp, and also a padding vertical of 20.3 dp. And inside there, we're going to have another constraint layout. I'm going to break this down as well. So this constraint layout is going to now contain the image view for the icons at the top. So we have these 2 icons, and it's also going to contain this text before we get to this grid view over here. So for this one, we have to wrap the content, and we also have to wrap the content. Oh, sorry guys, not wrap content. We have to match parent because this is a layout. We have to match parent, but we can wrap content for the height so that we don't make things look awful. But I'm going to give it an ID of top. And inside the constraint layout, before we proceed, let's go ahead and finish this. Let's say start to start of parent, end to end of parent, and also top to top of parent, because it's going to stay at the topmost. And then inside here we have an image view. So I'm going to first of all make sure I have the source so that we can see whatever we are doing. So the source is going to be, we can say the source compat is going to be menu from the drawable. So you can see that hamburger icon. We can wrap the content because we don't want a height or width, and we can constrain the starts to start of parent, the top to top of parent, and also the bottom to bottom of, so we can say B to B of parent. So it stays in that position, and you can see everything is looking very nice. And one more last thing we have to do is to also add an image view. So the first thing is to add the source. So the source is called symbol 61, wrap content, and we have to now give it a, we are not going to give it a start constraint because we want it to go at the right. So we start with end to end of, we can now give it top, and you see automatically it goes to the right. We can also give it a bottom to B of top, and also T to T of top. So we are done with that. So the next thing we have to do now is to add that big text. So that big text is going to be under this constraint layout. So I'm going to bring down the text view. So I don't want it that way, so I'm just going to close that. So for the text, I'm going to give it an ID of John because the name of the text over there is called John, and you can just wrap the contents. So guys, sorry for this jumping. And inside there, we're going to give it a margin top of 8dp, font family of open sans. I think we can use extra bold over here to make it more bolder, but first let me add the text. So the text is the name of the user, which is John Doe. So we get to see that text perfectly. Give it a text color of white. Give it a text size of 34dp. Then we can start with the constraints of parents. Then we have also the end to end. So we can say E to E, E to E of parent, and also TBT. I think I'm trying to develop something that is not yet working for me. So we can just give it the top so that it goes beyond the top constraint. So we are done with that one. So the next thing we have to work on now is this grid view over here. So we can't do this manually because, take for example, what if we want to grab some information like from the Firebase, just like I said. So we have to use something called grid view adapter. So quickly, I'm going to add the constraint first before we proceed to that. So for this one, I can break that down. I'm going to give it an ID of start container because we're going to be making use of this from our adapter. We can match the parent, and for the height, we can wrap the content. You can give it a margin top of 64.8 dp and a background or border. Sorry guys for that. So we have to go to the border from the drawable, and we can give it a padding horizontal of 49 and also a padding vertical of 40 dp. So you can see everything kind of makes sense, and we want it to come under this John over here, this text view of John. So we can say top to bottom of John. So you can see how nice and how simple that just fits perfectly. And inside there we can now bring in our grid view. So I'm just going to bring in the grid view. So we can just close that because we are not going to do anything here. We have to use the Kotlin codes to make sure everything looks perfectly. So first of all, I want to hide something called the scroll bar horizontal track. So I'm going to set that to false, and also I have to hide the scroll bars. So the scroll bars, I also have to set that to none. And lastly, we also have to add the fast scroll enable and set that to false. Then we can go ahead and add an ID to it. You can just call it simple grid view. So for this one, we have to fill the parent. These are obsolete codes, but as we progress, we are still going to update most of these things. And we want to give it a layer. Okay, we already have a layout height. For the layout height, guys, sorry for that. I'm not from Europe. I'm trying to speak English, and we can give it a number of columns too. The number of columns is because you have the one here, the other one at the right. Then we can constrain the bottom to bottom of parent, and also end to end of parent. Then we have start to start of parent as well, and also top to top of parent, so that it's going to make use of that constraint layout. So one more last thing we have to do is to add an image button. So under this constraint layout, you can bring down an image button, and inside this image button, first of all, we can give it an ID. Let me scroll up, of next button. Then for the layout height and layout width, as usual, you have to wrap the content, and you can give it a source. So we can just bring in group 358. Wow, that's looking very nice. Give it a background. Let me give it a background beneath this, because you can give it a background color of white to get rid of that. And we can just constrain the end to end of the container, end to end of parent, and also bottom to bottom of parent, so that it goes at the bottom. So that's looking very nice. So we are done with this activity starts. In the next part, we are going to start off with using the GridView adapter or the view adapter to display all these things from the Kotlin code. But for now, let's just go ahead and run this code to see everything that we've done so far, to see whether it's working perfectly or not. So let's just give that some couple of seconds. So everything seems to be working very nice and pretty fine. So when we click on this, nothing happens because we have not yet added the functionalities that can make it to use other activities. So this is what we're going to be doing next. And guys, do make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button, and see you on the next part. Bye bye. So guys, in the previous part, we are able to complete the second screen, that is this start screen over here. So we can go over to the category screen, but for now we have to make sure that we can be able to navigate from this main home screen to this start screen. Then when we are done adding the list of these things from our Kotlin code, we can now go over to the category. So let's quickly go ahead and start. I'm going to open the project pane once more and come over to your Java folder, and we are going to go over to the main activity file. So inside our main activity file, we want to make use of that button that we added there, the start button. So I'm just going to find the view by ID, and it's going to be a button, arrow.id.button. So why we are using arrow.id is because we gave it an ID of button. So over here you could see the ID of button. We can set an on-click listener for that button. So we could say button.onClick listener. So whenever we click on that, we have to switch over to the next activity, and we can only do that by using the intent, and we pass the current activity, and then we specify the new activity that we want to go over to, and we call that Java class. And then lastly, we start that activity, and it's going to automatically move over to that activity. So while our application is going to run again, by clicking on that play button, we are going to come over to the start activity. So in this start activity, like I said initially, we have these 4 values. So we are going to quickly create something called var or start. But first, let's go ahead and check our app, and let's click on this, and you see we're already on that screen over there. So we're going to create all start, and all start is going to be an array list of something called start feed. So we're going to create this model quickly. So this is just an empty array list. If you're coming from JavaScript, you can call it this, or you can call it this, anyone, but just know that it's an empty array list. So let's quickly go ahead and create a model. I'm going to right click on this and click on new file. I'm going to call it models dots, or just models is okay. So clicking on OK because we already have it. I'm going to create a file, a class called start feed. So the start feed is going to have a value of, I think we have the name. So guys, my brain is kind of getting slow now. Let me kind of check something. Okay, we're still on the right track, just that I forgot that we have to add a string to it, and also we have the image, which is going to be an integer. If you're coming from React Native TypeScript, all looks familiar. So you see that error goes away instantaneously, and what we have to do next is to populate the start feed with new values. So we can add the start feed with a name. So we could say the name here is total score, and we also have arrow.drawable.icon 15 trophy. So we can just duplicate this to 3 times. We have the total score, we have the total text, we have the previous score, and we also have the time taken. And let's go ahead and change these images respectively. So this one is group 25, This one is icon finder 12. And this one is group 24. So we are done with that. So for us to make use of that, we have to populate. Sorry, we already populated the array, but we have to make sure that we can populate our grid view over here using the Kotlin codes. But we have to create a file called, I'm going to call it, create a class called start adapter. So this start adapter is just going to be a simple class that we're going to be using. So I'm just going to quickly create a class called start adapter. And inside the start adapter, we have to declare some values. The context is going to use the context, and it's going to use the array list as well. So we can just say private val or starts, which is just an array list of the start feed. So as we move on, you're still going to understand, and we're going to make reference to the base adapter. So because of this base adapter, we have to implement some members. Just hover over this start adapter and select everything you see here and click on OK. So that error goes away. So what you see here is because everything we want to populate from our array list, we want to display it over here, and we want to make it work perfectly without any issue. So the get count gets the count of how many items we are going to display, whether they are 4, 5, 10, or any value. So these ones are just going to return position .toLong, and also grab that line of code and paste it over here, and that just goes away. And for this one, it's going to return all start.count because it's going to be an array list. And then for the view, we are still going to come back to work on that. But back to the start activity. So the way we can use that is very simple. We have to first of all grab our grid view. So we can say simple grid, which is the grid view, find view by ID, and we can just bring in the grid view. So we can say arrow.id.simple grid view. So we can just get the simple grid view.adapter and set it to the start adapter, which is going to accept the current context and also all starts, which is the array of the start feed. And let's kind of go ahead and run this, although nothing is going to display because we've not yet, in fact, it's not going to work. So let's just go ahead and fix everything before we run the code. It's not going to work because we are not returning any view for now. So the view we are going to return is in this item list, and let's go over to quickly design this item list before we make use of it. So over here, we have to bring in an image view, and let's break this down. It's going to have an ID of start image, and we can wrap content over here, wrap content. And I think maybe it's best for me to give this a width and height. So let me kind of check the width. We have 4558, or let's use 6060 rather than using wrap content. So 60 dp and also 60 dp. So I'm just going to bring in an image from the drawable. So we can say icon 15. We are just going to be using one image, so don't bother about any other thing. So for the ID, okay, we already have an ID of start image. Then we have to start the constraint. We can say start to start of parent, end to end of parent, and also top to top of parent. So everything is looking very nice. And one more last thing is to make sure that it stays at the center by constraining the bottom to bottom of the parent as well. So that it stays at the center because we want to use it at the center. So everything is looking very nice. One more thing we have to bring in is the text view. So I'm just going to quickly add everything. Margin top of 16.7 and also a font family of Open Sans bold. Then we have a text of total score. And let's start, before we start the constraint, let's kind of give it a text color 164B8. So that's looking very nice. And we can now constrain the start to start of the container. So we can use the container because let's use the start image rather than the container, end to end of start image as well, and then top to bottom of start image. And we already have the margin and everything is looking very nice. So we can now go back to our adapter. Before we come over to our adapter, we have to, we already set everything here. We have to come over to our adapter. So back in our adapter, we have to now make use of this item list. So we're going to be using something called layout inflator. So I'm just going to create a layout inflator. I'm just going to take the layout inflator from the context, from the previous context or the current context that we're using. I'm going to create something called main row. So each of those rows is going to be a view, and it's going to take the layout inflator dot inflate the item list that we just created from our layout file. So we are getting layout inflator should inflate this. Then we can now pass the view group. So I'm just going to change this to the view group, and also I have to change this to view because I want it to look very simple. Then we can pass the view group and we can set this to false, and we can just return the main row. And let's now go ahead and run our application. Everything should work perfectly. So let's give this some time. And let's click on start. And right now you can see that nice looking interface. That's exactly what you see over here. So you can see we have that nice looking interface. And right now let's go ahead and make sure that everything that displays over here is the same thing for each one of them. So first of all, I'm going to select the start text, which is the text view, and I'm going to make reference to the main row.find view by ID. So that's why I like this, and it's going to find from that main row we can make use of the start text. So we can set it start text.text. Let me just do it this way. Let me just select it singularly so that I don't complicate things. Also start image, which is the image view. From the main row, you can find view.id or .id.start image. So let's now go ahead and replace them how they should be. For the start text, the text is all starts. We get the position of each of the current elements, then we get the name. Then we also have start image dot set image resource to all starts, the position, and sorry guys, this is supposed to, let me just go ahead and complete that. Everything is still working perfectly, and when we run our application, everything will still run perfectly, everything will still run fine. So why does this trying to run? Let's go over to this activity starts. So the next thing we have to do is to make sure that whenever we click on this, we can be able to come over to this choose your category, and then lastly, when we are done with this, we can now start the quiz, grab our question from OpenTDB API, and then perform the operation for all the quiz functionalities, and then we'll have a full quiz application. So in the next part, we are going to check the application to see whether it runs perfectly. But for now, make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button, and see you on the next part. Bye-bye. So guys, welcome back to this Kotlin quiz application. So in this part, we are going to check our application as well and also work on the category screen. And in the last part, I said that we're going to check whether the application we ran perfectly. With the application we started ran perfectly. So the application ran perfectly, and when we hit on start, over to this start screen, you can see we have everything that we have over here. So we have the total score, total text, previous score, and time taken. That's to show you that everything worked perfectly. So if you're following along, make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. And if you're new, make sure you hit the like button as well and also the subscribe button. So everything is working perfectly, and let's go ahead and work with this next button, the next button over here, which will now bring us to the choose category screen. So back in our project code, we have the next button. So what I have to do is to close others. I have to close others, and in our start activity, I'm going to start by selecting that next button, which is going to find view by ID, and it's going to be an image button, which is going to get the ID of the next button. And what we have to do is to take that next button and set an on-click listener. Then we can now reference to the category intent, or the category activity I mean. So coming back here, we already have a category activity, and also in our rest folder in the layout, we also have a category view. So I'm just going to quickly make reference to each one of these. So the intent is the intent, which is going to take from the intent and take the current activity with a category class. And then lastly, we can start that activity. So when we go ahead and run this code, everything is going to work fine. But while the code is trying to run, come over to your activity category and let's start the design. So the design we are working on is exactly what you see over here. So right now, let's go ahead. So don't make sure you move forward without hitting the like button or the subscribe button. So make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. And right now, let's go ahead and get started. So we already have an ID of body, and what I have to do now is to bring that image view that looks like a back button at the top. I'm gonna close this, and we have the ID of image view 4. I'm just gonna add any image ID and wrap all the content, and like usual, we can just bring down a source so that we can see what you're working on. So at the drawable, we have to take the back arrow. So one more time, the back arrow. So you could see that back arrow over there. So what we have to do is to constrain the start to start of parent, the top to top of parent. We're not going to constrain the left or right. What we're going to do is to give it a margin left of 21 dp and also a right of 23 dp. So I think that should solve it. We are still having an issue. Why? I think we also have to give it a margin right. Okay, this is a margin top, not margin right. So guys, sorry for that. So that makes it fit perfectly. Then we're gonna have a constraint layout. So this constraint layout is going to have an ID of text cover. So we are working on this text cover over here, which has that choose category and also the other one. So this one is going to have match parent, and also this one is going to wrap content. But the top of this one is going to be at the bottom of image view 4, the parent image. And here we're going to have a text view. So I'm going to break this down as well. We also have to wrap the content. Then we can give it an ID of text view. So we can change this to text view 4. Then beneath this the text is gonna be choose there, and it's gonna have a font family of open source bold and a text size of 34 dp, text color of 01016A9A. Then we can constrain the start to start of parent, end to end of parent, and also top to top of parent. So that solves it. And also we have to bring down a text view. So we have an ID of text view 5. Then we have a wrap content. So we have the font family of at open sans bold like the previous one, but give it a text of category and a text color side. I think they are the same. I think the text colors are the same, and also the text size are the same. So let's just grab that, and that's looking very nice. But the top is going to stay at the bottom of text view 4, the start to start of text view 4, and also the end to end of text view 4. So right now you can see we have that nice looking text over there. So the next thing we have to add are these 3 images, and if you can observe, these images are not just in one shape, they are in different shapes, but they are in different dimensions. And let's go ahead and fix that immediately. So after this constraint layout, beneath that we are going to start by bringing down an image view. So first of all, let's bring this source. So this one is group 355 image, and it's going to have a wrap content and also a wrap content. So it's going to have an ID of image view 5, and give it a margin top of 57 dp. Then we have the start to start of parent. This is just going to stay at the center, just that the top is going to stay at the bottom of the other previous constraint layout. So we can say end to end of parent, then top to bottom of the previous one, which is the text color. Yeah, so everything sees perfectly. Then we also have to bring an image view. So covering that, we have wrap content with a source of group 357. So we could say group 357, and that brings it out. And we can give this an ID of image view 6, and it's gonna have an imagine end of 12 dp, also imagine right of 12 dp. Then the end is to the end of the other one, so we can say end to end of parents, then top to bottom of the other image, which is image view 5. And that's looking very nice. And lastly, we have to add an image view. So this one has a source of drawable /356. So wrap content, and give it an ID of image view 7, and also a margin top of 43 dp. Then we can give it a margin end, so the margin end of 29 dp, but also a margin right of 29 dp. So either margin right or margin end should work, but I don't think that margin end can work without margin right. So, but let's kind of constrain the end to, so end to start off image view 6 and the top to bottom of image view 5, and it brings it down. So we are done with that. And lastly, let's go ahead and bring this image button as well. So that's the last thing we are gonna do for that one, and that's gonna be an image button. So this one is gonna have match parent, I guess, because we have to make use of the full weight, but we can give it an ID because we're gonna be making use of this from our Kotlin code start button. And for this one, we can wrap the content, give it a background color of, we can actually give it a background color of white, or we can just use a drawable and give it a background color of transparent, so that it's going to not have a white space over here. But the way we are doing it right now is that it's going to have a white space at the bottom, but never mind, everything still works perfectly. Then we can say bottom to B2B or parent to bring it at the bottom. But first, let's bring in the source, which is group 3571, and you can see everything is looking perfectly. Constrain the start, parent, and end to end. Oh, sorry guys, end to end of parent, and that solves it for this category screen. So guys, let's run our application. In the next part, we're going to view our application, but we are done with this category screen. So on the next part, we're going to be working on this question screen, and also making sure we can use this image button to start the question activity. So guys, don't make sure to forget to hit the like button, or just go ahead to hit the like button and also the subscribe button. On the next part, we are going to check our application, and see you next time. Bye bye. So guys, welcome back to this Kotlin quiz application. In the previous part, we have been able to complete the screen for the category, and we promised to run our application, and we've run our application. And let's go ahead and check what we ran. And when we click on next and click on this, you see we come over to that category activity. But right now we can use this one because we've not yet created the question activity, and also the making use of the start button to actually move into the question activity. So before you proceed, make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. And right now, let's get started. So I'm going to right click on this and create a new activity, a basic activity, by the way. You can just close this, select that again. We are going to create an empty activity, not a basic activity. I'm going to name these questions and hit finish. It's going to generate a layout file for us, which is activity questions as well. So, and we can now go ahead and make use of the category activity to actually come over to the question activity. And that's what we're going to do next. So how we're going to do that is open this activity question, the activity category. You could see we have an ID of start button using this start button at the bottom, and that's what we're going to use to actually trigger that activity. So for the start button, we're going to select that, which is an image button, and it's going to find the view by ID, r.id.start btn. And we have to select the in-text of our question activity. So I think we didn't import it. Just hold Alt and hit enter and you can just quickly import that. So this is questions class Java. And then we can just use the start button, the set on click listener, and we can start an activity of intent. And let's go ahead and run our application. But while the application wants to run, let's go ahead and work on the design for the activity questions. This one is going to have a lot of works because if you check over here, we have one more screen over here, and this is just like an overlay from this one. So after we finish this, we are still going to add an overlay, but don't worry, we are still going to work everything out before we finalize everything that we're going to be using. And then back in this question activity, you want to first of all give it an ID, so we can give it an ID of quiz. Sorry guys, not on this one. You want to first of all bring down an activity, a constraint layout, and then give it that ID. And just go ahead and close that. So for the layout width, we have to match parent, layout height, match parent. Then for the elevation, it's going to be 2 dp, and we're going to give it a padding horizontal of 21 dp and a padding vertical of 23 dp. Then inside here, we're going to have a constraint layout. And inside this constraint layout, this one is going to have an ID of top. It's going to be the top overlay. No, it's not going to be the top overlay, but it's going to be the top section, because this one is going to overlay this one. So we just give this a top, not that there's anything, it has to do with an overlay. Sorry for that. So back here, we can just match parent, and here we can wrap the content, and we can start, give it a constraint start of parent, top to top of parent as well. And we're gonna have an image view, which is similar to the back button from the category, I think. Then we have the ID of image view 2. 21 dp, give it the height and the width, 21 dp. Let me just bring a source from the yes, we have a source from the drawables, then start of parent, and also top to top of parent. So that should solve it. We have that nice looking back icon. So we are done with that. Then we have another constraint layout. So for this one, it's going to have an ID of info, and also we can give it a match parent and wrap content. Give it a margin top of 24 dp, margin bottom. No, we don't have to give it a margin bottom. We just have to constrain the top to the bottom of the top one, and that should solve it, so that it stays below that icon. And it's gonna have a text view. So sorry for that. An ID of text view. A wrap content, and the text view we have here is time left. So let me just go ahead and grab that. So give it a text of this, a font family of bold, then a text color, hash 2D33C. So we have 2D33C and also a text size of 16 dp. Then we have start to start of parent and top to top of parent. So it stays on that layout, on this current constraint layout. And also we have one more constraint layout that one more text we have to add inside this constraint layout, which is this number of questions, the current question over the number of questions that the user is actually making use of. So this one is going to be a text view, but it's going to have an ID. So we can say an ID of total num, a wrap content as well, and it's going to have a font family of bold. So we can just give it a dummy text of 1/20. Then we can give it a text color of hash 006996 and a text size of 16 dp. Then we can give an end to end of parent and also a top to top of parent. So that looks very nice, and we are done with that one. Then we can just get rid of this, get rid of that, and beneath that we are now going to have another constraint layout for the question. So this one is going to have an ID of question container with an ID of with a layout width of match parents, and this one is going to have 0 dp. Then start of parent and top to bottom of info. So that's done. So we now have a linear layout inside over here. So we are working on this one now. We have the text and also the number of questions. Then we have the answers, and let's quickly go ahead and work on that. So I didn't want this to be more than 10 minutes, but it seemed not to be pitying me. So we're gonna have both relative layouts and also a linear layout. I'm gonna give it an ID of main question container. So this one is gonna match the parent, and this one is gonna match the parent, but we're gonna give it a horizontal orientation, and we're gonna give it a weight sum of 4.0. And then here we're gonna have a relative layout with an ID of question number. Then we have match parents, a layout height, a layout weight, because we already have a height. So that is, sorry for the delay. For this one we have a layout weight, so let me just type down weight directly, of 3.8. So don't worry, when we finish this I'm going to explain that. Then we are going to have a text view, then this text view is going to have an ID of text view 6. I'm gonna wrap the content, give it a text of 1, a font family of open sans bold, and a text color of 006995, a text size of 16 SP, a start to start of we have to constrain this. I don't think whether this is gonna work, but let's just try again. But start to start of parent, but it didn't work, which means relative layout works pretty fine as well. Then we're gonna have one more relative layout. So inside this relative layout, you're gonna have an ID of child 2, and also a match parent. Then we're gonna have a text view, so this text view is going to have a wrap content, and we're gonna have an ID of main question. So guys, this seems not to be making sense for now, but don't worry, we're almost there. And let's just grab that simple questions and put it inside there, and we can just put that question, and you can see, like I said, it's kind of getting to make sense right now. We can just give it a text color of hash 2D 33C, and give it a text size of 17 SP and a line height of 27 dp. So you see we have that nice looking question, and beneath that we are now going to have a layout. So we have the linear layouts. We can just break out of these, and over here we can bring out a new constraint layout, which is going to I don't think I need this. Okay, we don't need it for now. We can just use a list view, because the list view is going to contain all these answers that we have here. So we don't need that that constraint layout again. But for this one, we just have to give an ID of answers container. Then you can just close this. We can match the parents, wrap the content, give it a top of 28 dp, a background color of white, and we can just hide the divider. We can set that to null. Also divider height, don't worry, you're gonna understand everything I'm doing here. We have divider height of 18 dp, so that we can have some good spacing between each of these answers over here. And lastly, we have end to end of parent, start to start of parent, and also top to bottom of question container. So it stays below this question container. And we also have to add an image button. So we have an image button, ID of next button, wrap content, a background color of white, bottom to bottom of the parent, because we want it to stay at the bottom, and also end to end of parent so that it goes to the right. And then we can change the source to group 358, and that solves it. So right now we are done with this aspect. Everything that you see over here, we want to work on this. Don't worry, like I said, I'm still going to come back to explain how we use the relative layout to actually make a very nice looking question and also question number. So don't worry, maybe in the next part we're going to explain it, but in this part I just want us to make sure that we finish early so that we don't waste much time on this. So one more thing we have to do is to add this overlay. So this overlay over here is just what we're going to add. I'm going to first of all come over to the layout folder, and we're going to create a drawable file called done. But I don't think I should do it now, but I feel like doing it now. Oh guys, let's just leave it. If it's necessary, we are still going to create it, but let's go ahead and add a constraint layout here. So I'm just going to quickly do things fast because I don't want this to take a little bit long more. And we have match parents, and also we have match parent because it's an overlay. And for this one, so we have match parents. We're gonna give it an alpha. Alpha is like opacity of 0.9, and we can give it a background color of. So I created a drawable file called, okay, so far you're using the boilerplate. You will still have access to this. You don't have to worry. Give it an elevation of 0 dp, or let's just give it an elevation of 3 dp, yes, so that it stays at the front, which is very nice, and also a padding horizontal of 12 dp. Then inside there we're gonna have this list of answers. So I'm not gonna do this singularly. We are still going to use Kotlin code to do it, just like for the number of questions, attempting questions. We are not gonna do this like this. We are still going to use Kotlin codes to do that. So that will now help make us to use the Listview once again. So we are gonna use the Listview again, and we're gonna have an ID of done pop. Give it a layout width. Let's say, okay, sorry, we already have a layout width of 0 dp, and also a layout height of wrap content. Then we can give it a background of drawable okay shape. So we can still hide the divider and also set the divider height to 18 dp. So for the divider, we'll just set it to null, and for the padding horizontal, you can set it to 11 dp. Then padding vertical, you can set it to padding vertical. We're going to set it to 9 dp, and bottom to bottom of parent, and to before that, let's just start with the top to top of parent, so that you could see it stays at the center. Bottom to bottom of parent, start to start of parent, and also end to, so end to end of parent. So that's it, and we are done with that. We are done with the designing. So you can see everything looks very fine, and everything looks pretty good. So whenever we run our application, this is going to overlay, and we don't want that. So that will make us to set this back to 0 dp, because for this constraint layouts over here, remember that it's a constraint layout we did set to either 2 dp. Let me kind of check, I mean for the elevation. So let me kind of check something. And so that should be here. So you can see we have the elevation of 2 dp, showing us that this is above the other one. So guys, we are done with the designing, and in the next part we are going to run the application, and then I'm going to make a small explanation for how I use the relative layout. Then we can now go over to making sure that we're going to have a full working quiz application. Do make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button, and see you on the next part. Bye bye. Welcome back to this Kotlin quiz application. So in this video, we are trying to build a full working quiz application. So in the last part, we completed our quiz design, everything that we have to do with the designing, we are done with that. But I made a reference of making sure you understand how this worked. So we are using a linear layout over here to actually display both the number of the answer and also the questions, the number of the question and the number of and the question itself. So we are using a weight sum of 4. And we are using double relative layout. So what it just does is it's going to be in a flex form, that's from the left to the right, and then we use this layout width to actually make sure that this is going to be lesser than the one at the right, while we leave this one the way it is for it to make use of the remaining existing width. So that's how it works. So if you're familiar with CSX flex, you see that when you say flex 1 and the other flex, you may say flex 2, you see that at the end the normal flex 1 may end up taking up the whole remaining weight. So that's exactly what is going on here. So if you have a better explanation, of course, I'm also new to Kotlin, you can put that down in the description. We all are here to learn, but for now, let's go ahead and preview our application to see whatever we have done so far. So our application ran perfectly. I'm going to click on start, and we can see the start screen, we can see the category screen, and then we can see the question screen. So right here we still have this action bar displaying, which you're going to get rid of using our Kotlin code. And also you can see we have the overlay kind of displaying, but don't worry, the Kotlin code is going to handle everything for us, because that's the next thing we are going to start doing right away. And let's just get started with that immediately. As usual, whenever we open an activity, the first thing to do is to hide the action bar. So we need to make sure that that action bar hides. I'm going to quickly grab one of this line of code over here. So we have, where is it again? What am I doing? It's kind of funny. Okay, support action bar. And we can put it over here to hide that, and also grab that and put it over here. So we are done hiding that. So we want to declare some global variables that we're going to be using, and we're going to be using something called companion object. So we can define some couple of properties that we're going to be using over here. So the first one is the current question number, which is going to be an int of 0. The selected answers. So in case we're going to be making use of something called like selected answer, we are going to need this. But for now, I think we can just get rid of it and set something called is correct. So this is going to be getting the number of correct questions that we selected, and also is failed, which is also an integer. Is going to be adding together all the numbers of the questions that we fail. So before we proceed, we need to make sure that we create every model that we're going to be using in this quiz application. So the first one we created was a start feed, to actually use it to list out the stats. And now we're going to create something called result feed. So this result feed is going to be the structure of what is going to be coming from our API. So we have a string of category, a value of type, we have a value of type, we also have a value of difficulty, we also have some questions. The question first before we go over to the questions. Then we have correct answer, which is also a string, and then we have incorrect answer. Incorrect answers is going to be an array list of string. So because we're going to have like 3 incorrect answers for one question, then we're going to have a single correct answer, then we're going to have the question, the difficulty, the type of the question, the category, and also the everything. In fact, everything is in the result feed. Then we also have to declare something called the quiz results. So the quiz results, I don't think I'm going to make use of that quiz result, but let me just quickly check something, guys. But let's just keep it down in case we're gonna be using this. So it's called quiz result, which is just a string. So I'm gonna format this properly. Then we have all class of all results. So all results is going to be the structure of everything that is going to be returned from our response code, which is whenever the API request is done grabbing the result of the question. So it's going to return something called results and also a response code. So the results is going to be a list of results feed, and it's going to also have a value of response code of integer. So either maybe 200 or 400 or anyone. In case there is a failure, we can still have access to that. So that's it for the results. We also have to create a class called join feed. So these join feed are the ones that we're going to be doing by ourselves manually. So it's going to have a questions of array list of string, because each of those questions returned from the result feed, we are going to populate it to these questions globally so that we can have access to it from anywhere. Then we also have answers, which is also an array list, but remember we're going to have an array list of string as well. So array list of string. Then we have correct answer, which is going to be an array list of string. So why you see a double array list here is because when we are populating all the questions into a single array, we also have to populate each of those answer array for each of the questions into answers array. Then we have also a correct answer array for each of the single question. So that's why you see everything just like this. So we can format file to make sure everything works perfectly. And back to our question activity. So let's quickly go over to that question activity. So I'm going to define something called all join, which is an array list of join feed, which is just an empty array list. We also have a variable of selected answers, which is an array list of string of array list. So we are done with the global variables. So I'm going to grab the endpoint immediately and bring it in. Or let me just quickly show you how you can create one endpoint. So quickly go over to opentdb.com and click on the API, and you can select the maximum number of questions, select any category, any difficulty, any type, and leave the default encoding and click on generate. And this is exactly the link that we are going to be using to actually grab our quiz. So I'm just going to quickly create a variable called endpoint. So this endpoint is going to be a string and it's going to contain all this over here. So, but I'm just going to get rid of the category because I don't want a fixed category. I just want it to come from random categories. Then we have questions. So the questions are going to be array list of string. So let me kind of check something, guys. Okay, everything is still fine. Questions is going to be array list of string, but let's just give it an empty array values. And we also have all the answers. Which is also an array list of an array list of string. Then we are going to have a value of all correct answers, which is an array list of string. So why you see me doing this is because once we get all the values that we need from our API, we just want to populate it here. Then we are going to push that into this global variable called all joined. So lastly, we have to create we have to grab the done layout because we have to hide that. So in fact, we're going to grab a lot of layout from here because we want to make sure we hide most of these layouts so that we don't have that bad overlay that we saw when we ran our application. So we could say view.gone. So let's kind of run this application so that you can see what I'm talking about. And let's click on start. And over here in start, you could see that we don't have that done layout again. Everything kind of looks the way it should look like. So everything is making sense right away. So we are going to be making a request using OK Http. So I'm going to quickly construct that. So we're going to call it HTTP async, which is going to take the endpoint and make a request for us using HTTP get. And whenever we get that, we also have to grab the response string. The response string. So guys, sorry for that, which is going to accept the request, the response, and also the results. And then we are going to use the Kotlin way of when there's a result, we should do this, or if there's no result, we should do another thing. But when there's a result, we have to check if there's a result dot failure. So if there's a result dot failure, you can just assign that to. So guys, I'm kind of missing something here. So sorry for that. It's just very simple. All you just have to do is to import it from the OK HTTP that we are using. So let's do that again. We can say is results. So make sure it's coming from Kitty Noof. I don't know how to pronounce that, but make sure it's coming from there. We now reference the failure. So if there is a failure, we just have to grab that failure and we can just assign that result to get the exception. Then we can just print out that exception in case there's an error. But if there's result dot success, then we can grab the data and let's assign everything to a string. This is more like a string builder. So if you're familiar with Java string builder, so this is just exactly. So let's kind of print line and print the data to see what we've done. So you could see that we have a lot of junks over here from the API and everything looks very fine. The response code was 0 and also the results with every other thing that we need from that API. So you can see everything is working perfectly. And now let's go ahead and make use of it. So whenever you want to convert a string to a JSON using Kotlin, there is something called a JSON builder. So you can just go over to this project folder. I think in this file or this other one, you could see we have JSON. So I'm using the JSON builder. So this JSON builder, make sure you do have it. And we are using the Kotlin fuel. Sorry, that was not OKHTTP. I was thinking it's OKHTTP, but this is Kotlin fuel that we are using to make that GET request, which is not bad. But whenever we want to convert a string to a JSON, we use a JSON builder, which is very fine. So back in our code, we just have to build that to a JSON. So I can say JSON is, we are using a JSON builder dot create JSON builder dot create. So no recommendation. Let me kind of check the problem, guys. So we never had an issue. Just maybe change this to a JSON builder, because I kind of changed it, the value, that's the key holder, and everything worked perfectly. So we can just reference the JSON builder. So we can just use the create method to transform this to a JSON file, JSON method or JSON structure. So I'm just familiar with a lot of JavaScript things. Then for the main data is going to have a structure of all results, which is the JSON builder dot from JSON. We pass the data and we pass the all result class dot Java. So everything seems to be working very fine. So when we say main data dot, you see we have the response code and the results. That's exactly what we had in our model. So we can be able to access that. And what I can do now is, since we have a result, because the results are going to be an array, we want to populate the questions the values that we created here. We want to populate each one of them manually. So we can just say for index and value in main data dot results with index. So we can just get the main feed. So the main feed is the main data dot results, which is not a problem. We also have each of the question, because we can access each of the question right here. So we can say each of the question is the main feed. Then we pass the index of that current loop. Then we grab each of those questions, and then we can populate it to that questions value that we created at the top. So we populate each of those questions. So we're gonna have many lists of questions. So this is plural, not just question. Then we also have answers, which is the main feed index dot incorrect answers. So if you go recall, incorrect answers is an array, but we want to add one answer to it, but position it randomly so that it's not going to be in a fixed place. So we can just take that answer once again and add from 0 to 3 index, that's 1 to 4. This is plural, not just singular. We can just add a random number, and then we can say the main feed index dot correct answer, and then we can say all answers dot add answers. So we are gonna have an array list of each single array of answers. Then lastly, we can get the correct answers, which is the C answers, which is the main feed index dot correct answer. Then we can populate the all correct answers with just the strings, which is the C answers. So there is something we can just add called http assign.join. So I don't actually know what this does, but for some reason let's just use it for now. Then when I print this out, so let me say I want to print all the questions that we populated so that you can actually see what we've done. So I'm just going to restart the application. So you could see we have an array of questions. So sorry for that noise, but we have an array of each single questions with a comma. So everything is working perfectly. So the next thing we have to do now is to add it to this global variable called all joined, which is an array list of the joined feed that we created from our models. So that's very simple. You just have to say all joined dot add. So you just have to bring down the join feed. We have the questions, which is the questions. We also have the answers, which is the all answers. We also have the correct answer, which is the all correct answer. So guys, the way I did this, I kind of realized I did this the hard way, but if you have a more better way of doing it, no problem, you can still use that. But this just how we can populate all join. But there is a way we can do it and assign it directly so that we don't have to do this again and again and again. So once we are done with that, we now have to start quiz. We now have to use each of these values in our array over here and display it in our application. So that will now lead us to start with creating a private method called start quiz. So beneath this, I'm going to just type down start quiz. And I'm going to create a private method called start quiz. So the start quiz, whenever we start quiz, we want to get everything that we have in this screen over here. We want to get the button, the number of questions, the question, and also the number of the question that we are answering. So we have the next button, which is going to find the view by ID, which is the image button. And we can select r.id.nextBtn. We also have the total num. So we're going to be making a lot of constructs manually. Then we have find view by ID of text view. So we have r.id.total num. We also have main question for the active question, which is going to take the find view by ID. So I think is a text view for the current question. So we have r.id.main question. Then we have done layout, which is constraint layout find view by ID of r.id.done. So that same done layer that we selected and hid, we are still going to show it whenever we are done with the quiz, especially whenever we get to the last one and select the answer or hit on next. We want to just show the user your progress so far. And then we also have to select the quiz layout, which is a constraint layout of find view by ID r.id.quiz, and val done pop, which is the pop-up or the overlay, which is a list view, and we have r.id.done pop. So we are done with the selections. So first thing we have to display the number. So if you check here, we created a value of question number of 0, of course, because we want to access the first number in the array as number 0, but we want to display 1 over here. We want to display 1 over here, so we don't have to display 0, although that the length of the array is going to be 9 because we are grabbing 10 questions from our array over here. So if you have maybe selected 50 or 100, just know that the first one is 0 and 100 array elements is 99. So what we have to do now is to create a new question num value, and we can assign it to question number. Also, we have to get the current question. So the current question is gonna be the all joined. So I think you can think about this. So it's gonna be the all joined 0 dot. We are not able to access this for now. I think so let me kind of change this to value and see. So let me try that again. All joined. Something seems not to be okay. Okay, let's just try that. All joined. Oh, okay. All joined. We get the first question from the questions, then we pass the question number. I mean, we get the first object in the array of all joined, and we pass the question number. So while we are using all joined 0, we can even do it like this, so that so I can say, or let's just leave it this way. There's nothing wrong with it, but there are always a better way of doing things. So if you know, no problem. So we also have to grab the list view. So we can say the answer list view. Let me shift this up. It's a list view, and it's gonna find the view by ID of r.id.answers, answer container, of course, and so we are done with that. Then we can now, because this is still going to be 0, just like I told you that we have a question number of 0, we now have to increment this number to 1. So we can say increase the display number to +1. So we can just increase that to 1. Then we can now use the total num.text equals to, then we construct our own number, which is the question number to string, and we can now put the total amount of the questions, which is the all joined questions count. So we could say all joined questions dot count. So this will now make us to have number 1 over 20, or if we have multiple things there, you just let us, I mean, if we have more than 10 questions, you just let us know. So it says unresolved reference questions. So in the category, we have questions, but this was working before. So what can the problem be? Oh, everything is still working fine. We don't have an issue. So let's go ahead and try that again. And I don't think this time around we are gonna have a crash. So let's check. So we should get 1 over, I think 1 over the total count, which is 10. And right now, okay, our application ran perfectly. Next, and we start the quiz. Okay, so you see we have 1 over 10. So why you see that little delay is because we don't have something like a spinner, which will actually stop, I mean, which can actually spin before it displays. So So we are done with that one. So the next thing we have to do now is to set the first question. So the first question is going to be the main question dot text is equal to the current question, which we grab using the index, and also set the first question answers. So for us to set the first question answers, remember that we are using the Listview adapter. So first of all, I'm going to make a selection called Q answers, which is going to be an array list of string, and it's going to come from the all joined 0.answers. Then we pass the question number, the correct index of that question. Then we can set answers. So we have set answers to Q answers. So this answers is a method we are going to create immediately. So why I decided to create this is because I don't want this side to be messy. I don't want the code to look messy. So we can say array list of string. You can just pass that, but we are going to come down here and create a private function called set answers, which is going to take the Q answers of array list of string, and it's going to have we are still getting an error here. Why? Sorry guys for that. I passed the array list of string wrongly. So this is Q answers, and over here we can just get the answers from the list view, find the view.id, view by ID of the answers container. Then we have the index and the value in Q answers dot with index. Then we have answers dot adapter is equal to answer adapter we are going to create immediately, which is going to accept the context and also the Q answers. So I've already shown you how we can actually do this, but let's just go ahead and do this quickly. Right click on your Java, right click on this folder over here and click on next. Then you select Kotlin class, and we're gonna call it answer adapter. So let's hit enter and check back. You can see we have that fixed, and it's gonna accept the context. And it's going to accept also the answers, which is an array list of string. Then we have to extend that to the base adapter. Then inside here we have to override the font, or let me just implement it automatically so that I don't waste time. So we can just hit OK, and it's going to do that for us. So this one is going to return answers counts, and this one is going to return the position dot to long. Same thing with this one, and here we have to just change this one to the view and change this one to the view group. So Kotlin keeps getting sweeter day by day, and we now have to create a layout inflator, which is gonna be a layout inflator from the context that we got. Then we have the answer row, which is gonna take from the layout inflator. We're gonna inflate that with arrow.layout.answers. Then we pass in the view group and set this lastly to false. Then we can just return that answer row. So let's just quickly check whether we have this sorted out the layout answers. So we have answers over here. So from the boilerplate, you can have access to it. I left it there. That's very nice. So we have just the number of the answer and then the answer itself. So as you move ahead, you will still follow along because everything is there for you. Then we have to create an answer number, which is the position plus 1, because we don't want an array of 0, 1, 2, 3. No, we just want 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the answer row dot find view by ID, which is the text view, and then we can say arrow.id dot answer text dot text. Then here we can pass the answers position of each answer. So let me format this properly. So let me kind of use the code cleanup so that everything is going to format properly. And also we have to take answer.findView.id. The other one was for the answer text. We also have the answer number, which is the text view, .id.answer number dot text equals to answer number dot toString. So lastly, we return the answer row. So let's go ahead and run this application and see whether this is going to work. But for now, we just have to take a break. In the next part, we are going to complete everything that we've started so far. So we should get the first question and not the dummy question that we use in our design. So let's just allow that to run. And that's almost ready. So we click on start, next, start, and we should get the question and also the answer. So what country is the second largest in world area? So you see everything is looking very nice with the divider and also the divider height. Everything is looking very nice. So you can see that we can now be able to grab the first answer and also the first set of answers, the first question I mean, and also the first set of answers. So guys, don't forget to hit the like button and also the subscribe button. In the next part, we are going to complete the quiz project and we're going to have a full working application. So thank you once more. Make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. Bye bye. Previously, we have been able to automatically make an API request, grab the question and load in the first question. And this is exactly what we had in the last time. So we had the quiz question of what country is the second largest in the world by area. So this is kind of making sense right away. So the next thing we have to do is whenever we click on this, we want to go over to the next questions while also we do some calculations of the ones that we got and also the ones that we failed. So that's going to be very simple. So all we just have to do is to grab the answer list view. So I'm just going to make use of the answer list view that we selected and set the item set on click listener. So I'm just going to make use of this one on click listener, which is going to accept the parent, the view, the position, and also the ID. This is not supposed to be this way, but let's kind of try that again. Set on click listener. Okay, so sorry guys. This is set on item on click listener. Yes, set on item on click listener. So inside here we have to make some selection. We have to get the clicked ID, the current question that is the current answer that is selected, which is going to convert the integer of the ID to a number, and also we have to get the correct answer. So the correct answer, so let me just make this more later, is going to be the all joined. We get from the correct answers, then we pass the question number to get the correct answer itself. Then we have to get a selected answer. So the selected answer is from the all joined dot answers. We get a question number. Remember that is an array of answers. Then we pass in the clicked ID, the one that we just selected. Then we have to check whether the answer is correct. So if the answer is correct, the way we have to check it is whether the selected answer is equals to the correct answer. So if it is correct, then we have a true value. So we have to check if answer is correct. So we could say if answer is correct. So we can now increment the correct value that we had at the top, which is 0 to 1 or 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, according to the number of correct answers that we get. If not correct, then we have to negate the is failed. We have to remove the ones that we have also in is failed. So let me just go ahead and format this code to look nice. And that's looking good. So we have to check if the question number is equals to the all joined 0.questions.count. Remember is 10 minus 1. So why we are doing this is because whenever we reach at the last question, we have to just stop moving, stop incrementing the number so that we don't get a crash in our application. And also we have to check if the question number is equals to 10, because definitely it's going to be equal to 10 on every increment. So if it is equal to 10, we have to hide the quiz layout and then we can show the overlay, or we can just show the overlay. So let's just let's just go ahead and hide the quiz layout, then we show the overlay. I think that will be better. So we can say the view.gone, and then we can set the view of done layout to visible. So we could say the view.visible. Then after that, we can now pass the information. So for this information, this is going to be your own challenge, because I think I have to create one more model called done feed. So the done feed is going to be this way. So it's going to be your challenge. You're going to be the one that will create it, because hopefully if you had come this far, you should be able to do something like this. So the done feed, let me just help you create the model itself. So we're gonna have a class of done feed. So the done feed is going to have a value of q numbers. That's the question numbers, which is a string. This is going to be a string. We also have the correct answers, which is going to be a string as well. We also have the question attempted, which is also going to be a string. And we have the question failed, so question negative, which is also a string. But I'm not going to display all these things, because you also have to give it a try to see how far you have followed along, which is very simple. So for the done feed over here, you can see everything just stays normal. So we have the question numbers. I think I spelled something wrong. So this is question numbers. So I'm just going to set a single question number. So we can say the q numbers is all joined 0.questions.count. So we have the correct answers as well is correct. The ones that we got, maybe we got 5 questions or 10 questions. So everything that we are doing here is just for this. So we have number of questions, attempted questions, correct answer, and negative marks, the ones the user failed. So we also have Q attempted, the question attempted, which is going to be the 10. So you can just declare a global variable. Maybe when the user click on next and skips the question, it's going to not increment the question, but when the user selects an answer, then it's going to increment that question. So, but for now, let's just set it to a default 10. Then the negative ones, which is the ones that the user failed, which is going to turn that negative value to an absolute value of is failed. So this absolute value, let's just go ahead and import it from, I think it's from Kotlin, which is not bad. And then all you just have to do is to set the done_pub.adapter is equal to done_adapter with the information. And I'm going to create an adapter called done_adapter, but like I said, this is going to be your challenge. You're going to be the one that can fix all these other values to update automatically. So, which is not a big deal as well. So I'm just going to create a new Kotlin class called done_adapter. So we have done_adapter created, and it's going to accept some couple of parameters. And the first parameter is the context. We have to define a private value of context, and we have private value of info, which is the done feed. And it's going to extend to base adapter, and then we can implement all the members. So we implement all the members. So I'm just going to return 1 for some reason, because if you check here, we are not looping through an array, so it's just a single value that we are returning. And for this one, we just have to return the position.toLong, replace that, and then this one we replace the view and also the view group. So sorry for that. Then inside here we have to create the layout inflator, which is a layout inflator, which is the layout inflator that from the context. Then we can say, we can define a start row. So each of those start row is going to be a view. A start row is the total view, but we have to inflate with the layout from done list. Pass the view group and then set that to false. So make sure this is spelled correctly, and we just have to return that start row. But from that start row, we can make a selection by finding the view.id. So I'm just going to replace only one thing. Then, like I said, it's going to be a challenge. You can try it out. So we have the queue number. I think we've not even designed that. So let me kind of comment this out, and we are still going to come back to that. But the done list over here doesn't contain anything yet, and I'm just going to grab this code and put it down so that we don't waste time designing, because everything here is just very simple. All we just want to do is to do something just like this. So this is the most simplest thing. I think you can also try out by yourself, but I'm going to just put down the code so that you could see how we did it. So all we have here is we have the score, which is this text over there. Then we have the ID of score. Then we added the fonts, just the text, but one of the main important thing is that each of these has a margin top of 10. This one also has a margin top of 16, the first one, but this one has a margin top of 10. So the arrangement doesn't look okay. Let me see whether it's going to rearrange automatically. Okay, it didn't rearrange, but I kind of rearranged it maybe in a way that's not looking good. But you could see we have a very nice layout with just the text and the layout, just 10 points for each of these. So that's just the simplest thing that we did over here. So you don't need to bother yourself much on that. So let me kind of show you how it is. So breaking this down to look normal. So we have that text view. We also have this text view over here. We also have this text view. We also have this one. Then we have the image button. The image button is the close button. You can actually use this image button to restart the quiz. Just like you could use it to go back to the first activity, which is the main activity. So you can just change this ID to like something like, I'm just going to give you a clue, restart. So back in our adapter, I'm now going to allow this. So we are making use of the queue number. So we have to change the text to attempted questions, and we can just change it to info.queue numbers. So that we have this will always happen whenever we get to the last question. And let's go back to the questions. So we are done with setting the adapter. So one thing also is right here we are checking if the answer is correct. Is also incrementing it. I think one thing. Okay, everything is looking very good. Everything is looking very good. But what if in a case that, because this is a case that okay, one thing we have to do now is whenever the questions is complete, all these things are going to happen. But what if in a case that the question is not yet complete, we still need to make sure that we go over to the next question. So we now have to use the else statement over here. And what you just have to do is to increment the question number and also the question number. So this question number is the one that displays in our screen, while this one is the one that helps us to move to the next question. And we've done so far, and let's go ahead and try to run the application to see what we're gonna have. So let's allow that and give it some seconds. And let's go ahead and click on start. So my machine is kind of lagging, but let's hit on next and hit on start. So to start the quiz, and when I select this answer, it should increment that number for us. So everything still remains the same, and that means that we've not yet gotten it. So let's kind of check where the problem is coming from. And the problem is because we are not updating the values, we are not updating our list adapter. So updating is very simple. We just have to take the total number and reconstruct that. We could say the total number text is now equals to a new question number dot to string, and then you could say all joined dot questions dot count. And also we have to now update the main question as well, because we're already in the new, we're already in the next element in the array. So we could reference back to that questions again and get the current answer. And then you can now update answers. So we could just say new answers is all joined answers, and we can pass the new question number. And lastly, we can now set the answers with the new answers. So this should now solve the problem, because this one is going to update the main question text and also the total number text, and this one will now update the answer text. And let's go ahead and give that a try again. And I'm going to click on this one, and you see automatically we go over to the next one, click on Honda, we go over to the next one. I'm just making some random selections, both the ones that are correct and the ones that are incorrect. So I'm just going to be making that, and you see when we get to the last questions, we get attempted questions of 10, but for the correct answer, just like I said, everything is already kept for you here. It's just for you to make sure that they can show over here. So you see everything is working perfectly, and we have actually built this quiz application. So an idea I'm going to give you is to use the next button. So you want to make use of this next button over here to make sure you can skip to the next question. It's exactly the same thing that we did here, exactly the same procedure that we did over here. So all you just simply have to do is you just have to still check for this. You check for this, and you have to check whether it is up to 10 as well. If it is not, then you can still increment the number, which we now go over to the next question, and that's all. Then you can now use this method as well to update the values. So we've come to the end of the tutorial. I've already given you a test. You can also take the next button as a test, but at least this so far has shown you how you can use Kotlin to make a HTTP GET request, build an interactive quiz application, and at the end have a very nice looking UI, which is not an issue. So whenever we start a new quiz, we get to see this very nice. So thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button, and see you on the next part of my video. Bye bye.